My
Well,
neighbor down the street.
to your point, Tony, if we get down to all the teams on this show, or we need another one. Uh, One of those teams did what you just said. More teams should do, and that would be my notes. I'm just going to jump on them for a second. Las Vegas wanted to get. The joke was that Tony will like this because it's an old mention. Al Davis, one of the brilliant drafters of all times of players, evaluating, and one of the like top five people who made the merger possible. And he would have made Michael Pennock a typical draft pick, a stretch, and everyone would have questioned Al Davis. But this new regime, the general manager came from the Chargers, Tom Telesco. He picked Brock Bowers, and they're going to go with a two-team set because last year they had this Michael Mayer who had a great year. So they just backing up what Tony said. They're definitely going with a two-team thing. By the way, New England, I think, started it about 10, 12 years ago. Rob, help me on this one. Of course, it was Gronkowski. And who was the big guy who wound up going in jail and died? And unfortunately, was it a Spanish name like
Hernandez?
Yeah,
Aaron Hernandez with the Patriots.
Yeah, Hernandez, a wasted talent, a wasted human, unfortunate. I guess he got in with the wrong crowd. So not that we're going to dwell on it. Drugs, guns, whatever it was and then jail and death early. He was he may have been better than Gronk because I think if I remember, Tony, didn't he have more speed than Gronk?
Oh yeah, he was a phenomenal athlete. He was
unbelievable. So that's one of the good things that Belichick did because I'm not as high on Belichick as the whole world is. He's great, but I don't believe he deserves the greatest coach of all times because if he had Brady and he had McDaniels calling the plays. But we're getting off. Do we want to go to New England as we mentioned Belichick?
Before we jump into New England, we do have an audience member who's made some comments and asked a question real quick. So, Bob, I hate to break it to you. The Gumby Rules laid some smack on the Bills. He calls them the Bills, the boy I love losing Super Bowl team. Woof. And he thinks they're heading downward, and Josh Allen can't win the big one.
Well,
boy I love losing is.
Well, wait a minute.
The Gumby Rules said the Bills are the boy I love losing Super Bowls team.
Okay.
BILLS.
Yeah, BILLS.
Well, first of all, Gummy, I don't know who you like. I also like the Chiefs. So that's kind of making up for it. I was bashing Josh. If you listen to it, I was actually bashing Allen in a nice way. I'm not a big fan. I told you my clock on him was like the minute they drafted him. I wasn't a fan. I didn't like the pick. I don't know who you like. I'm sure you're a Giant fan because only a pompous Giant fan would make that comment. Thank you very much. Then again, you might be I
don't know. The Gumby might be a Dolphins fan. He did reference their record in the 70s over the Bills.
Oh, now we know where the evil's coming from. I get it. I get it. 70s were a long time ago, weren't they?
But he did have a question for us. Yes. He says there's a story about the Jets moving back to Queens. Is that true, John? And if so, where do they get the money for the stadium?
I don't think that's true. I mean, I haven't.
Where did this appear? Let me interject. Where did this Jets back to Queens? I have not even seen a print, a rumor, a whisper, a leak in the Where is that? Where did that come from? I checked.
Who knows? That comes from the Gumby Rules. That's his comment.
No,
I never heard anything either.
I actually read something about
moving back. I want to hear a comment on moving back to Queens, getting out of Jersey. You mean there'll be the second New York team other than the Buffalo Bills? You mean there'll be the Queens Jets?
The reason they moved to New Jersey was to escape the taxes anyway, though. I mean, there's more talk about them becoming the New Jersey Jets than there has been about, the Queens Jets.
Oh, so you don't think you're going to go, John? You don't think
I never got through after Rob said, but go ahead.
You don't think they're called?
Well, I'll just say, guys, this is a good one. I live in New York most of my life, except when I traveled as a salesman, and I never cared that much for the New York Giants football. And Tony, I saw Charlie Connolly and Y.A. Tittle play.
So did I.
As Rob knows, I'm that very old guy masquerading as a young guy. But
Well,
I never cared for the Jets or the Giants. I was a Bears fan, which I no longer care. But anyway, are we
I'm
ready
sorry,
to
Herb.
do New England, or are we going to joke about New Jersey and Queens and the Jets?
well, I mean, I'll just say this about the Jets. They are the New York Jets, are they not? They're not the New Jersey Jets.
Right, right.
So
No,
why
they're not
can't
the They're
why
not
can't
the
they
New York.
move? Why can't
No,
they
you know
move
what it
back?
is.
Why can't they
Let me
move
say it.
and
They
play their
have on
games?
their helmet Jets, and the Giants have Giants. There's no mention of New Jersey or New York, very subliminally. You know,
Well,
they
I
have
mean,
a Jet helmet and a Giant helmet. There's no mention of NJ or NY. That's
know.
a fact.
But why can't they play where the Mets play? I mean, the Mets don't play anyway, so just move them in there. I mean,
Yeah.
they play baseball.
Personally, I'd like to see the Jets go to Queens.
Well,
I
you know what?
can
You know
go to my
why?
in-laws' house and watch the Dolphins play
Unless
right
you
there.
could,
Hop on the train.
Well, Rob, that's where they played from the start. They started in Queens. So
the reason they can't go to the City Field or whatever they call it now, it used to be Shea Stadium. The reason, guys, they can't go is this was not a little known fact, but it was played up years and years ago when the Bears played in Wrigley Field, which is only the confines of Wrigley Field, and I saw the Bears play there. I saw Gale Sayers play there. They had I don't know what I believe it's 38 to 40,000, maybe a drop either way. So the Bears had to move to Soldier Field, and the rule around the league was unless you have a 65, I believe you may have to check me. I believe 65 or 68,000 minimum for any new stadium years ago. Yeah, so they were all like 60, 70, 80, 90, that way. That's why they can't play in a baseball field or any baseball field. That's why the Raiders moved. It's the same thing. What's the root of all evil? The law of money.
yes, I love the money. Yep.
There you go, Herb. So yeah, let's hit up the Patriots. What do you got? What comments do you have, Herb?
Okay, we got Drake May, who they kept a pick and didn't trade down. Which, by the way, Bill Belichick, who was on with who's that podcast guy that used to play with Aaron that they now moved him to ESPN?
Pat McAfee.
McAfee had him on his draft thing, and the way he was talking to McAfee is that he would have traded down for more picks, but his time is gone. Belichick, wide receiver Jalen Polk, that's an interesting pick because what did I write down here? Let me get some light in here so I could see what I said to you guys.
I think Drake May is going to be a bust.
Drake May
is.
I have one. Let me say, and then I want to hear what you guys think. Drake May, 21 years old, great family. I saw him on the draft. Brothers and mother, all athletes. He's 6'4", 223. Great family. Okay, but here's what I'm worried about. Drake May played at North Carolina. He reminds me because he played 28 or 30 games. He reminds me of the second coming, maybe, but much better than Mitchell Trubisky, who played 31 games. And before that, a guy at Duke, Daniel Jones, that area doesn't produce quarterbacks, according to my way of thinking. Daniel Jones is nothing, and Rob knows how I felt. $160 million. I went out of my mind. How do you pay that guy? So Drake May reminds me of a latter day and better version of Trubisky. Washington receiver, they got two wide receivers of the first 5 picks. Javon, help me on this one, from Javon Baker from University of Central Florida.
Yep, Javon Baker. Yes.
Javon Baker was their 5th pick. Jalen Polk the 2nd. So Drake May's the new quarterback. He's got a Washington and a USC who's a big guy for USF, Central Florida, and they did draft another quarterback down lower in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like the eighth pick, Joe Milton of Tennessee, which is kind of interesting because teams now are not adverse to taking two quarterbacks as Drake May and Joe Milton, and we all know the big story if we get to Atlanta or either tonight or whenever. They took Michael Pennox, and even though they signed Kirk Cousins to a $1 zillion deal, they checked with the owner, Arthur Blank, and he okays it. So a lot of teams are now realizing you better have a backup quarterback and maybe one in the hole that's going to be, because here's a funny thing. Was it 10, 12 years ago, Robert Griffin III was drafted 1, and further down, Kirk Cousins, who had a longer lasting, less injuries, no injuries until last year, when Robert Griffin, flailed out with injuries. So it was Robert Griffin and Kirk Cousins. Now it's Kirk Cousins and Michael Pennox. I think that's a bit of irony. And now we have Drake May and Joe Milton. So take it away, guys.
So, yeah. So what do you guys think about the Patriots, this draft, and their general future?
Anthony, why don't you go first?
Yeah, Tony.
I think their heyday is over for a long time. I think,
Excellent.
their heyday is over.
You don't like May?
Tony, do you think when I agree with you about the heyday is over, but do you think they're in? By the way, I think they and they have a rookie coach, Jared Mayo. That's another thing to point out. Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets, same coach. New England has Jared Mayo. I have in my search and all the 8 new head coaches, because I always think that a new head coach is at a disadvantage. So when you say that their heyday is over, do you think they're going to have like a lot of years bid after 20 years with Brady? That's what I think.
I think so. No question about it. I think you're going to see multiple changes in the coaching in the future. You're going to see players come and go. You're not going to see them in the playoff run. You're not going to see them in the Super Bowl for a long, long time.
So
I agree with you.
They have Anthony. You don't like the quarterback they have now that they drafted from North Carolina?
They drafted who?
May from North Carolina.
He's okay. I haven't seen him. I saw him enough. He did okay there, but I think, he had a good year, and then the expectations were high, and he didn't have such a good year his last year. I mean, they were okay. I think the coach who coached them is a good coach, and he was at North Carolina, won a national title at Texas. He came back to North Carolina after being out of coaching for a while. I think draft. A lot of teams draft by their need, what they think their need is at the time, and who's available at that moment. And the other thing I got to say is so many Heisman Trophy winners haven't panned out. They flopped, actually.
Yeah.
They've had very short careers.
Now, do you like the guy that Washington picked from LSU? Because I'm not crazy about him.
Are you talking about Jaden Daniels?
Yeah,
yes.
Jaden Daniels.
By the way, what is Rob and your other, Rob and Rob? What do you guys jump in on the New England? We didn't get your thoughts on that. And Drake May, New England and Drake May in particular.
So I have a question about New England, and that's we talked about. I mean, everybody talked about when Brady left, and it was Brady versus Belichick, and their egos and all this stuff. What about the Robert Kraft versus Bill Belichick? I think that's more of like a head-to-head battle of the egos. I mean, this is Robert Kraft's team. He picked his guy as head coach. He kicked out I mean, everything's arguable, but at this point, he's the greatest coach that's ever coached, due to all the Super Bowls that he's got, with and without the Patriots and stuff like that. And, he was the one that was building that team, and, he had all the control there. So now Robert
I have a
Kraft's got
funny thing, if I may
Mayo in
interrupt.
there.
You'll pardon the interruption.
Go for it.
Rob, are you there, Robster?
Yeah, we're all here, Herb.
You're going to like this one, Rob. This is what last August I read. By the way, I don't want to let the secret out. You know me watching games and me getting information, Rob. You're the only one privy to that. If you want, I'll reveal it.
And
but
we will
last
be
August,
doing when the opening lines come out, Herb. We got to bring you back on.
That's right.
I'll be here for whatever you want, you guys. But here's the thing. I read as much as I can about what's going on in the league and the teams. I'm not concerned with watching the game because you have no control over it. It's like if you're rooting for A and I'm rooting for B, and the Angels are not watching the NFL on Sunday. However, Robert Kraft, to your point about Kraft and Belichick, Robert Kraft made a remark that I read. They asked him at an owners' meeting that I read, August, in the preseason, how important it is to make the playoffs this year for Bill Belichick. And he said, and I quote, because I saw the interview, it was like, on the NFL site. He said, it is extremely important that we make the playoffs this year. Well, once they got off to a bad start, a month into the season, the proposition came up on one of my wagering sites. And this was the proposition. Do you think Bill Belichick will coach the Patriots in 24? That was the favorite bet. You had to give odds. The second one was he will be coaching another team. That was even money. The third pick, you got 3-1. He's retired and not coaching. Which one do you guys think the Herbmeister bet on? Not a big bet because it's still dangerous. It's betting in August something that's going to happen. Although I will tell you, I bet $25 to win $75. So I'm awaiting my $100 bet win when the season starts. I knew Kraft had enough of him already, and it was time to move on. You like that story, guys?
He was
That's
a goner,
a true story.
So I'm going to make a quick comment on the Patriots, and then I'm going to suggest that we broaden the discussion to maybe elaborate about who really knocked it out of the park, who are the busts, instead of maybe going team by team. So
good enough. And if on another show we want, we'll pick it up with the AFC North, the AFC South, other divisions. But we could go with who knocked it out if that's what you want. But go ahead with the New England comment.
I think in that discussion, the teams will be brought up organically instead of just going list by list.
Right.
So
right.
One by one. So I'll say this about the Patriots. Again, the pendulum has swung. They're going to squander. They're going to squalor. They're not going to compete for the division. This is the Dolphins and Bills division. Sorry, John, but that's how it's going to be for a while. And know that North Carolina is not a football school at all. They're a basketball school. They have one double-digit win this millennium. And you're seeing them in their ceiling as we speak. They had Sam Howell. Now they got Drake May. Mac Brown's got them to 8-5 on average. This is their peak, and they will go back to losing seasons once he retires. So the Patriots are in trouble for a long time. But I don't feel bad for them because they were great
this year just by subtraction. There's so many better teams.
There's so many better teams, and I don't believe in the Tennessee quarterback either. They drafted. They're in trouble. So Herb, who are the teams that you believe are at the top of the podium, are standing on the podium?
Okay, and then if we have to refer to who they drafted, I made my notations. I didn't have any team, Buffalo, Miami, or Jets, New England, as a top team in the draft. However, I do think, and this is a little risque, I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers did one of their Pittsburgh quote-unquote Steelers. They drafted, I believe, top three offensive players, a wide receiver, a linebacker, and a it's a wide receiver, 1, 2, a linebacker, and 3. Someone called him a top steal. Some guy. It's either offensive or defensive tackle. So I have Pittsburgh. We could talk about moving on. I think quietly maybe Indy, who has a very good general manager, Dennis Ballard, who they didn't want to promote to general manager when he was with the Bears. He wound up with Lieto Latu and Adonai Mitchell, which are two really good players, as I think. So I said Pittsburgh, Indianapolis. Now I'm moving on where I made my notations. Let me see. By the way, you guys know that Zeke signed back with Dallas, right?
Yes.
That's why they didn't go after the running back, Jonathan Brooks from Texas, who they wanted. Jerry was saying, oh, he's high. But earlier in the week, it was that they were going to re-sign, Zeke. Okay, the Bears had a decent, what do I call them here? Hold on a second. Where's my other list? Give me a second, guys. I left it in the other room.
Okay.
The Bears. Well, while I could talk,
I'm not a big fan of Caleb Williams. I don't think he's going to work out.
Well, according to I'm not getting crazy over. Even though I was a former Bear fan for about 55 years, Caleb Williams 1 and Roma Dunze 2. Everyone thinks makes the draft, but like Rob just said, he's not that high on him, and I can understand that because I saw him play, but I'm not sure, if it's going to translate because how many great guys came in and didn't. Here we go. We could get back to, was it Bob who mentioned Jaden Daniels? We can get back to Washington in a little bit.
Yeah, I did.
Here. Oh, Green Bay, I think, had an excellent draft. They got a tackle, a linebacker, a safety, and a running back. The fourth one, the running back, is small. I don't think running backs who are 5'6", 5'8", 5'9", I would never take them. That's too small. It's like taking a corner or a safety who's 5'9" or 5'10". You got to have safeties in corners 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". Tampa Bay, believe it or not, I thought had a great draft. They took probably the best center. Rob, you'll know this because it's the ACC. Graham Barton from Duke, 6'5", 300, might be the best center. They took an edge guy, Chris Braswell, who looks like he's a decent player. I think Texas or one of the Jalen McMillan, one of the good receivers from Washington, and they got a running back who, well, he's 5'9", so I don't care. And surprisingly, and then I'm concluding, and you guys can jump in on all the different. I think Arizona quietly had a good draft. They took 7 of the top 90 players in the draft. That's 7 in the top 90. And if my math is correct, which I'll make you all laugh, in high school, geometry was a year and algebra was a year. It took me 3 years to get through 2 years because I couldn't do it. But I divided 90 into 7, and it's almost 8% of the top 90 picks went to Arizona, and I could name them if we have to. So just finishing up, I believe Arizona, I believe Tampa Bay, I believe Green Bay, Chicago maybe because Rob is putting a hold on my thoughts. Pittsburgh and Indy. You guys could take it away, and I could look up any of those teams. Go ahead.
Tony, what do you think about Williams in Chicago? Because I see pretty well.
Sorry.
What do you think about Williams in Chicago? He got drafted number 1.
Caleb Williams. Rob doesn't think that much
really well,
of him.
So,
USC.
I've seen him at his best, and I've seen him at his worst. And here at USC, and I saw him at Oklahoma. And I mean, the kid is definitely talented. There's no question about it. I think the unfair for him is they're comparing him to the next Mahomes or saying he's going to be the next Mahomes. Well, let me tell you, guys like Mahomes don't come along very often, and he's not going to be the next Mahomes. He might be very good. He's got good speed. He can roll out. He's got a good arm. If he's got good receivers, he's got some blocking. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be, a knockout, a player like Mahomes. And remember, Mahomes set the bench for a whole year, before he got off that bench. So,
Which I hated. That talented.
Well, I think actually he sat for it was still it wasn't 17 games in 18 weeks. It was 16. So the next to the last week,
he played like the last week.
They let him play. Threw for like 200-300, and immediately Andy Reid said we're trading Alex Smith, and he's starting next year.
Yeah, he should have never sat at all, because when you can't teach somebody that what he was. If you want a quarterback that's going to be pretty good, yeah, he can learn the ropes and sit a year. But what they did with Mahomes is just waste a year of his life, because that kind of talent you can't teach, and he should have been playing from day one. And that was a screw up. And I understand it was a normal type screw up, because that's what everybody does today. They give them a break, they make them sit a year, but that time when you get that kind of guy, you just can't do it. It's like sitting Jordan.
Well, Rob, you jump in, because you think he'll be able to what they're projecting is that he's going to be all right, Caleb Williams, because of what they did. Like they got a Dunze, the rookie, who's supposed to be, and maybe you guys saw him interviewed on the draft. He's a real gentleman, quiet, nice, and well spoken. I think he's better than Malik Neighbors. I honestly do. But they got DJ Moore, they got Keenan Allen, who's probably on last legs the last year or two for sure, because the Chargers got rid of him. So right. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and a Dunze, that's like they're giving him some power to play with, right? What do you think?
Herb, I'm gonna redirect your question to John, because I kind of commented on Caleb Williams.
Right. I was gonna ask John what he thinks of him.
Yeah. See, here's my thoughts as a Jets fan. I watch our team take quarterbacks and botch them miserably. We take guys that are super young that have talent, and then we don't develop them. I mean, it doesn't matter. You rarely find that Patrick Mahomes. It is so hard to find the Peyton Manning of the draft. I mean, this is not something there's no exact science. There's so many flops out there. I personally don't like to grab a quarterback super low. I would have liked to see the Bears trade back, bolster their offensive line. There were a lot of good linemen here. Joe Alt is going to be a top-tier lineman for a very long time.
Excuse me, that's another team I left out. The Chargers had a great draft.
They had a great draft.
I forgot that one. Yeah.
Harbaugh did a hell of a job, and he grabbed a lot of his guys, and he knows his guys. And like I said,
the Chargers are going to we're going to win games this year. They're going to be all right.
Another AFC team that will prosper, unfortunately. Yes.
But
I left them out when I said best teams. But once you mentioned Alt, tremendous. Like excellent.
Well, just look at everything Harbaugh's done and everywhere he's been.
He's a winner.
That's right.
I saw him play with the Bears.
Right. And the one
thing Ditka screamed at him like a maniac. You remember that, don't you, Tony?
Yeah. I just want to say this. There are winners and there are champions. And there's a big difference. And this guy Harbaugh, he's a champion. He knows what it takes to be a champion.
He also is a winner. By the way, let me jump in. Lad McConkey at 34, Junior Colson at 69, Chase Daniel, the ex-quarterback who was on the post-draft, he said that he thinks Lad McConkey was the best pick. That's Chase Daniel, who had always a pretty good backup year. So and Joe Alt, Junior Colson. The only thing, a little joke about Junior Colson, I hope he's not related to the Colson who was part of the Nixon downfall.
What'd you say, John?
Joe Alt was the pick. He could, when this draft is all said and done, he could be the best pick from this draft period. When it really comes down to it, he's good. He's good. And all these quarterbacks, everybody's trying to hit a home run. You know, the Jets have been doing it for years. Not everybody's going to hit a home run, and it's really hard to do that. It is so hard. We're still trying. I like going and getting a proven quarterback. I'm not crazy about Caleb Williams. I mean, he could
Can
be.
I ask you, do you think how are the Jets going to fare this year? You're a Jets fan, right?
Yes, big time. If everybody stays healthy, we win the division. And I said that last year, and nobody stayed healthy. So, that's what happens, though. If everybody stays healthy, we win the division.
The betting on the division is extremely close. Who am I talking to, Bob or?
Talking to John, Herb.
You're talking to
John. On the betting site, the hardest division for betting is. I will read it to you in 1 second, and then I want you to elaborate on the Jets.
Probably ours, and I would stay the heck away.
Here's what it is. Hold on, I'll give you the
could.
division. Okay. Hold on. Division.
I don't like to bet on Achilles there. That's a tough thing to bet on because that's what you're betting on.
You mean the Achilles from Aaron?
Oh yeah, because if Aaron Rodgers goes down, Jordan Travis is not taking this team to the promised land.
Something must have happened. They took off. Oh, here it is. Pardon me. The Bills right now updated. Rob and John. The Bills are 9-5. That's 90 to 50, $9 to 5. And the Jets have moved into second place at 19 to 10, which is a tick under 20 to 10, which would be 2 to 1. And Miami is 11 to 5.
The favorites.
They're third choice. Of course, the Patriots, we know how bad they are. They're 18 to 1 to win the division. So I just wanted to throw that in because we have a Miami and a Jet guy here.
Yeah.